Welcome in, everybody, to Pro Football Enterprises. I am Ben Parker. We've got Austin Freed with us and Shane Ratliff, as we usually have both guys. Really appreciate them coming on. I think one of the assets we have of prospects on this particular network is that we have three people here. And I tell you, I don't care how much tape you study, and we study a lot, and I don't care how much you do or don't make a living at this. People are always going to see something a little different, and sometimes a lot different. So having three opinions here, and we don't try to homogenize those opinions. Having three different opinions on this show is a real advantage both for us because we get to hear different things, but especially for you, the audience, no matter how, whether you're doing your own work as well or not, you get to hear three different guys talk about these players. So I think that is a real asset here. Tonight, Ted Hurst coming from Georgia State. I think it's no secret that it's always harder to diagnose guys from smaller schools because of the level of competition they're playing against, but we're not going to back off of that. We'll come in strong with it and do the best we can with it. So let me set the table, and then we'll hear from the guys. Height 6'4", weight 205. The 24 numbers, 56 catches, almost 1,000 receiving yards, not quite, 17.2 yards per catch, and 9 touchdowns. The 25 numbers, 71 catches, did cross the 1,000-yard mark in receiving. The yards per catch, 14.1, actually goes down. Not a surprise. That is not unusual for higher end players. And then 6 touchdowns in 25. And for those of you that want that number, the 40-yard dash that ran at the combine, I believe, was 4.42. So let's get started. Austin, let's go to you first here. Ted Hurst, wide receiver, Georgia State.
Ted Hurst had a tremendous Senior Bowl from all reports. So you can look at any Senior Bowl kind of coverage, and you're going to see his name pop up a lot. And that definitely made me go back into his rewatch with some maybe more deeper looks on some of the advanced nuance type things and the route stems and things like that. And I did find some things that I did not really give him much credit for before I kind of did that. And I think his ability to run routes is better than I gave him credit for. I still am not a fan of his release package. I think his release package is slow, TikTok rowdy, the type that work at things like the Senior Bowl because there isn't a pass rusher going at the quarterback. It's one-on-one drills or like a 7-on-7 game. So I would love to see him really work on his release package and get better out the gate because he has a really explosive first step that he doesn't really use very often. He loves to chop his feet and things like that. And he has the length and the strength, I think, to be more of a straight line winner rather than someone who tries to win with quickness and suddenness. I think he does have suddenness in one aspect of his game. I think it's his deceleration. His acceleration's not great, it's fine, but the way he is able to drop his hips and just come to a complete stop is elite. And I think that pairs well with his deep speed because he is a 4.42 guy and he stacks these lower level cornerbacks with ease. So a lot of times he would be able to win early, get a stack, and then just stop on a dime and then be open on like a comeback route. I thought his comeback was his best route. The one thing I didn't love is that he didn't really work back to the ball, and that's a pet peeve of mine in receivers. You'll see me note that on anybody who does that. Does not work back to the ball very well, which makes them a little less quarterback friendly. But I tell you what is quarterback friendly is this giant catch radius he has because he plays uh, above the rim at times, especially down there in the on the goal line. He will go up and get a ball on a fade. The one thing I see talked about a lot with him that I don't particularly see eye to eye with the consensus of people, I think, is his true like deep ball ability. He's just bigger and faster than these guys, and he's a good at winning deep balls because of that. I don't see great ball tracking. I don't see great high pointing. I don't see the like nuance of like late hands. He doesn't really show any of that. I think his hands are strong but not soft. So I think anytime there's a ball that he has to go get and hold on to, he does that. But anytime he needs to have kind of soft hands, catch it, fingertips, things like that, I think that is just an okay part of his game. And he has a pretty high drop rate of like 10%. Overall, this is a player that I like more than I thought I would, and the combine has definitely helped out with that. He came in like an inch taller than he was listed at for Georgia State, which is almost never the case. They're usually shorter. But he came in at 6'4" when he was listed at 6'3". Ran a little bit faster than I was expecting. And then on the tape, he's really good after the catch, too, which I don't think gets talked about enough with him. He really upped his yak game in 2025. So this is a guy who I am coming around to liking, but I can't get quite on that level of some of these guys who have him in like their top five receivers in this class. I don't think he's there for me or really super close to that for me yet.
All right, Austin, excellent work. I'm going to echo some of that when I get to my notes, not all of it. You've got some detail there that I don't have, so that's excellent. But Shane, tell us about Ted Hurst.
So a lot really piggybacks off what Austin said. One thing you mentioned it well, Ben, you're talking about changing your level of who you compete against. This a lot of people forget. This is a guy that started out Valdosta State at Division II, so Georgia State was a step up for him in that first season. Kind of makes those numbers even more impressive for the 2024 versus 2025. To kind of go with what Austin said, like his first step, I agree with him as well. He doesn't use it enough. He loves to tap the feet and make him think that he's gaining ground, but he's not going anywhere. I thought that he has very fluid ability at all wide receiver positions. He can play outside, he can play on the inside. I think, as Austin said, his main strength is being an outside guy. Comeback route, best catches I've seen from him. Austin mentioned some people are really high on his ball skills. I fully agree with Austin. When I see it, I see breakdowns. I think some of it is concentration level, which people have brought up because of the drops, but I don't think he has great ball skills. He doesn't high point, like Austin said. Tracking the ball when you're just faster than somebody doesn't mean that you have a good read on it. Um, Routes, because of the elite bend and his ability to decelerate, as Austin said, some of the routes just look outstanding. Hard to tell again against the corners you're playing against, but he's open an awful lot. Um, the biggest weaknesses for me, man coverage eats him alive. As Austin said, when you go to the Senior Bowl, some things get shown. He made some great one-on-one moves to beat people, but when a guy could really lock him up and you got a rusher that's going to speed the quarterback's time, I mean, he does not look great when it comes to that. There's no run blocking, no strength in his game for a guy that's over 6 feet and over 200 pounds. So like Austin said, he's hit himself high, had a good combine, good Senior Bowl. Those help, get in front of scouts and see what you can do. But just like Austin said, I don't see him as a top guy. I also didn't see like spectacular grabs, which normally if you're a guy from a smaller school and you're going to make a move up, there has to be some defining play that really gets you in front of guys. And I didn't think that he had it this year. Georgia State has changed the way they do offense a lot, so it's given him some numbers and some open space to play against some people. And I think he took advantage of it. I think he's done what he can do to help himself. Running that 4.4 proves that he has, legit NFL speed. It's not just against the competition, but I don't think he uses some of the talent that he has. Now, could another team be able to help him and kind of speed that process along? And you see a guy that in the second year in the NFL looks like a different player than when they drafted him. That's a possibility, but I just don't think the NFL does a great job of increasing talent. It does a great job of eliminating you if you don't follow what it needs to do. And this is a guy I'd worry that he would kind of fall along the wayside because you're going to need a very specific team that's going to look for the skills that he's great at right now.
Shane, excellent work. All right, that's two of you. Now my turn. We'll get back to both of you in just a second and find out where we would start drafting a player like this and we'll also get your final thoughts. Here we go. I watched the 25 highlights, of course. Excuse me. Watched 25 Vanderbilt game. I watched the 25 Ole Miss game, the 25 South Alabama game, and the 25 James Madison game. Yak. There's a lot of big explosive plays after the catch, but even when it's not a big play, he doesn't go down easy. He'll fight for yards. He'll try to pick up something extra. Versus man. I thought he was effective versus man because he has a blend of size, speed, and routes. I thought he was open a lot more often than he actually got the ball. There's a lot of plays where the quarterbacks aren't looking at him and he's open versus man. I thought he could have actually had more yardage than what he did. Having said that, both of you mentioned this. When he's going up against teams like Ole Miss and Vanderbilt, often the quarterback's getting zipped too hard, too fast for Hurst to be open that quickly. So he cannot get open that quickly against a lot of these one-on-one covers from bigger schools. But when it came to normal amounts of time for the quarterback to throw, Hurst can get open. Versus zone, he can rip zone, especially when running through it. He was not asked to settle into holes very often. It's just not something they needed him to do. It looked like he could do it to some degree, but he's much better at ripping right through zone. Hands, I like the hands. It looks natural and smooth. He'll snatch the passes easily. Austin, you mentioned the strength of the hands. He'll rip down tough catches. Having said that, Austin, you mentioned it, 7 drops, 9% drop rate. So it's not like he has elite hands, nothing close to that, but they're decent hands. It's good, solid hands. Strength and catch radius, very good. I like the catch radius. Has no trouble playing above the rim. Again, that has more to do with his size and some strength in the hands than it does with him actually tracking the ball. Y'all mentioned he's not particularly good at that. Speed, athleticism is excellent, especially the athleticism. The speed is good. It's not great, but there's enough speed there to work with. I think he showed that. But the athleticism, he looks natural. He looks explosive. This looks like a kid who could play at a bigger school had he done so. The routes. I thought what routes he ran, and he didn't run all the routes. What routes he ran looked really good to me. So in route, out route, dig route, fade route. I thought those looked really good. He can snap them off very easily. Austin, I think it was you that mentioned that first. The deceleration, especially, that is a great way to put that. He decelerates quickly. So again, it's not like he's beating anybody with any one thing, but with the fact that he can go deep and people are worried about him going deep, he can snap off a route easy, decelerate, settle in. That'll work very well for him. Two ways to try to beat somebody on that. Deep. Can win deep when pressed or versus zone. I didn't see him beating off man. So anybody that wanted to play off man on him, he's not going to blow by that. That's going to be a problem for him. But he can win against a guy deep. And it's not dominant, but he can do it. He can win 20 to 30-yard red zone. I think, Austin, you mentioned that, him winning in the red zone a good bit, especially in the back corner. That seemed to be something that was very good. But again, he's just not going to blow by off man on the deep stuff. The middle. Very effective over the middle, productive. Could have done more damage, but they did not want him working over the middle. 80, 90% of the time, they put him outside because of his big playability. They just didn't have anybody else on the team that could do that. I think he could produce more at the NFL level over the middle than what he did at Georgia State. But again, that's not going to be his calling card. His calling card is going to be working on the outside. Boundary work, not a lot of boundary work at Georgia State, but I bet he could do it. I think he's got the size and the height to do it, but he just did not do a lot of boundary work there. Sometimes that comes down to the arm strength of the quarterback, being able to make those kind of boundary throws. Georgia State did not produce that. The blocking I actually thought was solid. Now the technique is lousy, but the effort I thought was great. They did not ask him to block much at the line of scrimmage, right? Anywhere along the line of scrimmage, but downfield, you can see him repeatedly making blocks 15 and 20 yards downfield for other wide receivers. You can see that in the Vanderbilt game, the Ole Miss game, the South Alabama game, where other guys are getting the ball and he's downfield laying some hits on, and the effort is fantastic. The technique is lousy. He doesn't sustain the block for very long, but he's always looking. I thought he looked like a good teammate out there. And in addition to that, Georgia State actually used him a lot to clear out space for the other receivers. You can see a lot of plays where they take him up and out, and the vacuum that is left behind, they a lot of times would throw into that, creating space for other receivers. I thought Hurst, in a couple of different ways there, showed that he's a good teammate as well. So I liked that. All right, let's get back to you guys. Austin, you first. Where would you start drafting him? And what else would you like to tell us about Hurst?
Yeah, his draft grade is tough because of the small school. It does have to be a little bit lower for me. I think I'm comfortable with him going around mid late third, is about where I see him being a comfortable pick for me. For most of the reasons we've mentioned, as well as I agree with you, Ben, about the off man coverage is a really tough look for him, and he didn't see a whole lot of that. But the reps he did see were pretty rough to me. I thought his best work was usually against zone, or
Yeah,
when a DB was trying to play him up close and they didn't get a good initial hand on him to slow him down early, because when he's able to eat up the cushion really quickly, if you're playing close to
yeah,
him, that's when he's super, super dangerous. And I do think he does a couple things well against off man. I think he attacks the DB's feet really well.
yeah.
But ultimately, I think a lack of change of direction that's not just pure deceleration limits him against man. So I've got him as a late third. I would be comfortable with him going middle third. But yeah, late day two.
All right, Shane, back to you. Where would you start thinking about drafting him? And final thoughts on Hurst?
For me, it sits right where Austin has it, late third, early fourth. But I do think he's a guy that your smart GMs are going to have circled for that day too, because it'll
Mhm.
be one of the, hey, we went and got what we needed. And hey, we can make this selection. We're going to get a really good wide receiver out of it at a later spot. And we didn't have to spend draft capital to be able to make a move, because I think this year there's going to be some wide receivers where teams get hungry and they're going to try to make moves to be able to pick one of the upper echelon guys. Um, you and Austin hit on it. The things that he does well, he does really well. Uh, the other in between things, there's nothing that stands out to me. You mentioned Ben. I do agree with you. The other thing is, I think his teammates do like him too, because you watch any of the catches that he makes, or if somebody else makes a catch after he clears out, he's one of the first guys to help pick him up, slap him on the back, celebrates with the guys. I think he really was a leader on that team. And that'll help when NFL teams are looking at a guy, because for a smaller school guy, they're going to try to do as much research as they can on how he is, not only on the field, but what else he does. Because if you're going to bring him in, you don't want to have a wasted pick out of that. Um, like I said, I wish, and Austin mentioned this up front, he has that great first step when he uses it, but it's like I don't see that first step acceleration in other parts of his game. So I don't know if it's just like he's great at that standstill. He'd be a great 10-yard shuttle guy, but once you get it past that, it's just not there anymore. Um, but yeah, I would say late third, early fourth. A team's gonna pick him up. I'm sure he'll have a good run coming through in the preseason in the NFL, but um, just not enough natural skills on my end for me to think he'd be anything above that.
And I'm going to come in a little bit higher on him than both of you. I'm somewhere between mid second round to mid third round is the range at which I would look at him. Y'all both said it, I think. This is really in different words. This is not for every team out there. Only certain teams would want to add him based on need and based on what he does. Okay, but I do like him. Part of that is, and I think all of y'all know it, and I'll tell you all in the audience, I do have a bias toward bigger receivers. If they show any kind of decent speed, I'm going to pick bigger receivers. So I'll pick him over some of the other smaller guys in this class. It doesn't mean that the other guys can't produce. It's just if I'm building a team, I'm going to be more biased in favor of that. Again, the small school part of this is what makes it hard to diagnose. If we could see him do some of this at a bigger school, I think it would be even easier. So that's where I'm coming in at on Ted Hurst. So between the three of us, we're anywhere from mid second round all the way to late third, early fourth, with probably consensus coming in at early third round by the time we're all done with this. Okay. So Thank you everybody for watching. Shane, I'm gonna let you do one more plug here for the work you and Simon did last week. Tell everybody what you did and where they can find it.
So Simon and I got together. You can find it Simon and Friends podcast. Simon does a great job. You can catch it pure audio on your Apple and any place else where you listen to your podcast. Also did the YouTube for us. But what it was is just a full breakdown of really the free agency run for offensive linemen. There's a little bit of draft talk. We tried to stay out of that because Simon was just starting to get through his draft stuff. And anyone who knows Simon like that, you have a 4-second conversation that turns into a 3-hour podcast about that singular subject. So we probably went more in depth than most any place else is going to talk about offensive line. There's some good information in there, and he and I see things structurally the same really when it comes to offensive line play, but the way that we read some of the free agent pickups and why they happen, we have some pretty good discussions about how that goes through the NFL in the past.
All right. Shane, Austin, thank you as always. Excellent work here on Ted Hurst. If you're in the audience, again, I know some of you do the work yourselves. Other of you, you're kind of scouting for your team. You want to check things out. So everybody have a great one. See you next time and goodbye.